long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. Welcome to the 11% Pod. I'm your host, Johnny B. This first guest, this is the first podcast episode we ever recorded. When I created the idea to do a podcast, I knew there were three groups of people that I wanted to be able to sit down and have a conversation with. The first was folks that I worked quite a bit with in the industry. They were usually well-respected, almost always universally well-respected. They have great advice. I thought a lot of people could learn from the discussions we have. But I may not have been close friends with them outside the industry. We work together a lot. We love working together. We have a friendship, but it isn't like they're calling me before they buy a car or getting my advice on external matters. The second group I wanted was a balance, folks that I was friends with outside of the industry and folks that I got a chance to work with regularly in the industry. I thought the conversations would be able to shed some light for some folks, and everybody would get a little something out of it, I like to think. And the third category was folks that I'm very dear friends with. I've known a long time. Maybe they work in a music adjacent industry, but we don't get the chance to work together because they're two separate parts of what we do, two sides of the music coin, so to speak. And our first guest falls into that category. The first podcast I ever recorded was with this guy, and it's exactly the way that I hoped it would go. I had hoped, and I told him, I said, man, I'd love for you to be on my podcast. I'd love for you to be my first guest, because I knew if he and I were having a conversation, there was no way it was going to be a bad one. Chuck Stikl has been a dear friend of mine for more than 3 decades. When folks would ask me, how do you know Chuck from the Edge? I would tell them I knew Chuck before there was an Edge. The more I thought about that as the interview date got closer, I was like, man, was that factually accurate? Have I known Chuck that long? So we dove into that. That's how our conversation started, was how long we knew each other. But it's been a journey through music and through life with Chuck, through all that entails. I've known him more than half my life. The highs, the big fancy concerts, the successful events, the celebrity hangs, Chuck was there with me on a lot of those. And the lows, when I found out I was getting divorced, when I lost a dear friend of mine that Chuck also considered to be a friend, and then we lost another dear friend of ours within several months of each other. We were there for each other. I know if Chuck Stickl is calling, it's going to be a great conversation. And he's one of the few folks that I'll always answer if it's calling. I don't let it go to voicemail. I always pick up the phone when it's him. But I think a true understanding of who Chuck is, I'll share a couple stories and then we'll get into the conversation. Several years ago on social media, I posted a statement that men should normalize saying, I love you to other men. And the first person to reply to that was Chuck Stickl. And he said, I love you, man. And ever since that day, he and I have never ended a conversation or even a brief run-in without telling each other that we love each other. Even more importantly, though, when I called Chuck and I said, hey, can we do this podcast? And he said, yes, of course, I'd love to. We knew we had to be in the same room with each other. My podcast studio is set up for digital interviews because most of my friends either live in Nashville or New York or London or, on the West Coast. They're not necessarily in close proximity to me. But Chuck and I determined we had to be in the same room because that was how we operated better. So he said, why don't you head down to the Edge Studios and we'll record it there? So on my 53rd birthday, we went in, walked into the Edge Studios. Chuck said, I'm going to put you in the captain's seat where Josh normally sits. I'm going to sit in the chair where I normally sit. And I sat down behind this massive console and this bank of screens that were so perplexing to me. I felt like I was in the cockpit of a space shuttle or something. And I told Chuck, I said, man, there's no way I can do this. I don't know how to run any of this shit. I don't know how to run a board. And in typical Chuck Stickl fashion, he found the best in the situation. And when I said, I don't know how to run a board, he said, well, it'll be good for you to learn. It'll be good for me to teach somebody how to do it. So we're both winning out of this situation. And in a brief 2 minutes, Chuck gave me a very broad overview of the studio there, the console there in the studio. And he and I sat down and had a great conversation. And the conversation ranges through a lot of material, from the beginning of the Edge to concerts like Edge Fest, to the Cult of Spine, to losing our dear friends Greg Kozak and Brent Douglas back to back, to there's just a lot of stuff that we talk about. I hope you get as much out of the conversation as we did. And I'm so thankful. I told Chuck this was the first podcast episode I wanted to record, and it couldn't have gone any better. So enjoy. Here's Chuck Stickl on the 11% Pod. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode of the 11%. So excited to have Chuck Stickl with me today, because when this whole concept first even came up, I said there were 3 different categories I wanted to reach out to, and I was going to reach out to 3 people in each, and if half of them said yes, I'd do it. And one of them was folks who maybe our work was adjacent, music adjacent. We don't work together every day, but folks that I'd been friends with for so long that I felt they had something to say. And that's where Chuck Stickl comes into the picture. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with the top 5 Chuck Stickl factoids, the true or false edition.
Okay.
Let people find some stuff about you they may not have known. And then we'll kind of get into the real stuff.
Right.
And then we'll end up with a couple questions.
Okay.
And I even had everything printed. Clip,
oh,
on
look at
cards,
that, on cards.
So I feel official.
Very nice.
So Chuck Stickl factoid number 1.
Yes.
As of July 2025, Chuck Stickl is currently one of the top 3 longest-running morning show DJs in the U.S.
That is, in alternative, I am second.
Second.
In alternative, I am second. Now, that is the alternative format. Obviously, the airways aren't full of them, but I am second. There's a guy in Utah and me, and that has been it for mornings on alternative radio. I'm very fortunate because there was a while where alternative radio went away.
For sure.
Like, it was not in many markets. It has come back. It's homogenized some, where, some of the bigger radio companies will just put on a generic alternative or whatever.
We're going to be talking about that.
I guess a lot of the staying power is due to the fact that there aren't many alternative stations, that you can work at. But also, to be fair, too, I'm quite proud of the achievement. I am quite proud of the fact that I've been doing that for a lot of years and have found a home in it. People always ask me, especially after doing alternative for 30 years, hey, why don't you just go do like a alternative, classic alternative station?
Yeah.
Where you can play the Pearl Jams and the Stone Temple Pilots and the Soundgarden. I really have no interest in that at all. Does that sound weird?
At one point where you're like, man, this is all I want to play?
I get bored real easy.
For sure.
Like, I can't listen to the same stuff over and over and over again. And that's what that turns into. That is, you're going to play all the hits from the 90s, and that would bore me to death. Not finding new music would bore me to death. Not changing what I find great in music and not opening myself up to new ideas in music would bury me. I wouldn't want to do it. I'd be real bored real quick.
And I don't think enough people realize that, because we're going to be talking a lot about Chuck and I's shenanigans over the years. And when we go to concerts, we go to Willie Nelson and Alison Krauss.
Sure we do.
And we go to Christofferson. We go to everything except the quote unquote alternative. We're going to talk about if that even is a thing, because we kind of were there and did it.
Right.
And that's not what we're looking to dive into.
That's
anymore.
it. I mean, again, there are certain legends, like you say, seeing Chris Christofferson. I don't care how many times you saw him before, you wanted to see him again.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's certain artists like, when Bob Dylan comes to town, you go see Bob Dylan. I get it. I understand. Oasis, I'm going to go see in Australia. Because,
congratulations.
Yes, because well, believe me, I took a second mortgage out to do this. But totally. But, there are just certain acts that I will definitely go back to see. But the majority of them, no.
Once I've seen them, once they're checked off my list. There's a very small handful that really will intrigue me enough.
There was a time when I would have loved to go see live play. Okay. Now they tour all the time on the casino circuit or on the outdoor amphitheater circuit and what have you. I'm good. Number one, maybe I'm not as in love with them as I was in the 90s.
Exactly right.
And number two, it's not going to be as good as it would have been in the 90s. I mean, let's be honest. There are just some acts where you appreciate the aging.
Christofferson
was a great example of that. Yes, there are some artists who know their place and realize that the growth comes from within the writing. The growth comes from not trying to recreate what I did 20 years ago.
Exactly.
I don't mind you playing those songs from 20 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever.
The hits.
Please do. But at the same time, too, let's not just keep trying to churn stuff like that out. And there are very few artists who have gotten away with being able to do it for that many years.
Truly.
I mean, it really is. I mean, to the point where even you two, you were kind of like, okay, maybe you don't need to put anything else out. Man. Appreciate what you're doing.
A for effort, guys.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really for you guys. And that's fine too. But I mean, let's not act like we should all get excited about it.
It's funny because we, this kind of ties back into Utah. Back in and we'll reference this later on, the Caroline Spine days, when we would catch them 5-6 nights a week.
Sure.
Their second biggest market outside of Tulsa was Provo, Utah.
Right.
And I never, and they said there's just this odd niche of wanting that thing. And then to know that all these years later, there's still an alt rock station out there. But the difficult part for me in doing what I do, especially knowing my target demographic is 50 years and over.
Right.
How do we get something people want to see, something that's still going to deliver a great show, something that isn't going to disappoint? I'm a diehard Bob Dylan fan, but Bob Dylan at 85 is not Bob Dylan at 35 or even 55 or whatever.
Right.
And because if somebody goes and they see a show they don't like, I'm the one who gets the call.
Sure.
It's not the artist. They're not picking up the phone and going, hey, get Bono on the line. Right. I want to.
And a lot of these people, you got to remember, too, just expect to be entertained. Exactly. And they didn't pay for it. And then all of a sudden you're right. It is a tough crowd. You really need to give them a great show.
You have to.
And that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
And some artists do.
Yep.
Some artists are just kind of riding it and collecting checks and heading to the next city. More power to both of them.
Right.
But I love the fact that you pointed out, this whole podcast conversation started, our buddy Jeff Shield with Gravity Kills. He and I were having a conversation, and Jeff said, man, the guy on MTV Beach House isn't the guy I am now.
Right.
And I said, I want to hear music from you now. Like, I've evolved as a listener. I want you. And he said, I've evolved as an artist. And that kind of led to you and I having a conversation. But number 2, okay, good to know.
Okay.
And I don't know how many of these are BS and how many. Number 2, as a ticket buying fan, Chuck Stickl was in attendance at Stevie Ray Vaughan's final concert on the night of his fatal helicopter crash in 1990.
That is true. In East Troy, Wisconsin, Alpine Valley, East Troy, Wisconsin, and it was Eric Clapton was headlining the tour. And then we have, of course, up second was Stevie Ray Vaughan on the bill. And then opening up the show was the only reason I went, because I had seen both those artists a numerous amount of times. Robert Cray was on the bill, and I went, what?
That would have been strong persuasion.
Yes, I haven't seen this guy yet, and that was the thing. I was going to see him. Crazy enough. And then, back then too, again, there's no internet, there's none of that stuff. And so you're driving back from the show that night and you're listening on the radio and the news comes over, the helicopters crashed, nobody was sure who was dead yet at the time. It was, so it was a really surreal moment. As far as any show, like the effects of a show, I mean, how do you even compare anything else to seeing a guy and then he's gone?
I knew a lot of folks who were seeing Clapton the next night in Kansas City, and they weren't know, was he going to do it? Was he not? It was 2 nights later, and he did wind up doing the show.
Which is crazy because he also lost his manager in that.
Lost 2 or 3 of his folks on that crash. And I think he came out and he said, man, I'm not here fully emotionally, but music helps me process these things. So he kind of launched into it and did what he did.
And to be fair to Clapton, he's not really into it emotionally most of the times I see him live.
Yeah, man, I will tell you, at some point, you are either become crotchety old man where there's nothing new music, everything's off. And he and Van Morrison are nailing that these days. But at the same time, as a diehard Clapton fan, after the 6th or 7th time I saw him, I said, man, I'm good. I don't see him reinventing himself enough where as a listener, I'm going to be good. Give me something, I haven't had before.
When he did his, when he started doing those shows down in Dallas where he would bring in a bunch of people for 3 days and stuff like that, what I look forward to the most about that was Jeff Beck.
Oh, yes.
Would come and usually do a tune-up show, and Brady Theater, there's Jeff Beck.
He's getting warmed up for Dallas, and we will enjoy that all night long.
So, I mean, there are good things about that too, I guess.
They came, and some of, man, it's odd because I probably wouldn't go to see Dylan again. I wouldn't go to see Clapton again. When they get together for those Crossroads Festival shows, it's, man, after Merle Haggard passed away, when Chris got together with the Strangers and started playing with them,
right,
it was a rediscovery of something. It was a whole new level of energy. But other than that, it's difficult to move on. Number 3.
Okay.
Chuck Stickl was invited to, but declined to participate in the recording of record-smashing and fundraising single "We Are the World."
That is, you know what? Because everybody realizes I'm old. So, I mean, it is quite conceivable that I would have been invited to that. Unfortunately, the phone didn't ring in Heartland, Wisconsin.
Dang you, internet.
Yes, right. But my thoughts with that, it looked like a mess.
It did.
Didn't it? When you watch documentaries on it and stuff like that.
The biggest night in pop or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
It looks like, I mean, it looked terrible. It looked like Dylan did not want to be there.
And I still don't think.
And of course, Dylan, for the cause, wanted to help.
Yeah.
But he saw all the nonsense around him and went, I have no interest in being with these
when
people.
Stevie Wonder has to re-engage you to sing to like Bob Dylan, you're turned out and you do not want to be there at all. And it's so obvious in the video. He's like, what am I doing here? You would have made us, hey, Prince wasn't there. Eddie Murphy turned it down.
That's right.
So you're definitely not. Number 4. Now, this one, a buddy of ours told me, and I wasn't sure if he was pulling my leg or not.
All right, he might be.
While living in Wisconsin, Chuck Stickl lived just a few blocks away from noted serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer during his active years.
That is correct.
Really?
I lived at 20th and Clybourne, and he was on 24th and Kilbourne. They were in Clybourne, Kilbourne, were like, I think, 2 streets apart while it was happening.
No shit.
And my roommate was a bartender at one of the in the Marquette University area is where it is, which is really funny because Marquette is a pretty nice, prestigious, and well-funded university. But right across the street is like the worst neighborhood you ever want to live in.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's like going, like when you go to the temple in Philadelphia and you're like, whoa, wait, what?
Am I lock the windows, roll up the windows, lock the doors?
And that's what it was. And he was living obviously in the area that was a little more sketch. And my buddy, he would stop off after work. He worked at the chocolate factory in Milwaukee. And I believe he'd come home after work and, have a beer or two or whatever at the bar my buddy would bartend at. And again, this isn't when he was going out carousing. This is like, after work, I'll have a beer or two or whatever, and I'll walk home. And get off the bus. He remembers because the bus stop was right there. He'd get off the bus. And every once in a while, it wasn't like every day, but he'd come in and to the point where he recognized him.
They knew each other. Hey,
yeah, right. Regular. I mean, this is a guy who's, and then, that all happens. It was crazy when it was happening because, I mean, again, Milwaukee was a pretty rough town at the time. So when these things were happening, it wasn't so crazy. Nobody thought anything of it until, they actually come upon him. If you've seen the movie, you'll understand it. It was pretty heart-wrenching just to see all the different stuff that he had done, and those cops were never the same after that. Oh, man.
Milwaukee's always been an industrial, it's a working-class town.
I mean, you go right through the Midwest with that little swing there, and that's all that was, yeah.
And it's you have a shooting in a neighborhood, man, you have a shooting in a neighborhood.
It was normal.
But I think, as you said, when they dug into how... And I had no idea that like, I never put 2 and 2 together. You were in that neck of the woods.
Right.
He was in that neck of the woods.
But I mean, that close.
And I think maybe it was Rick Shaw who told me. And I was like,
that is 100% true. That close.
And now, do you recall ever seeing him? You probably had to.
And I'm sure I did because I wasn't driving. I don't think at the time either. I was doing a lot of walking around the bus as well. So, I mean, but it wouldn't have. I mean, you see so many people in the city.
It's
like,
yeah. Thursday, September 11th.
Right, exactly. But when he kept coming in I could understand why my roommate could recognize them because it was where you worked. And again, it's not like you're serving 50 people. It's, 4 or 5 o'clock or whatever in a little tiny tavern in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's 5 people sitting there. So you do recognize some of the people that come in somewhat.
Okay, number 5, last one of the factoids. This was not intentionally timed this way with the last one, by the way, but Chuck Stickl can define all of the following and has partaken Kringle, a curd, and a cannibal sandwich.
Oh, yes, 100%. Cannibal sandwich, my favorite. You're not supposed to eat them apparently now. But you can look them up, and it will say on the Wikipedia page, it's in the certain area of Wisconsin where I lived, cannibal sandwiches are where you get ground steak. You don't get ground meat anymore. Back in the day, we sometimes would, but the meat was better back then. But now you'd have to get some real nice ground steak, kind of know where it came from, that sort of thing. Oh, yeah. Not over,
You're not getting it at Walmart.
Right, correct. And then you would take little pieces, and when I say little pieces, I mean, I don't know, what's that the size of?
Like a McDonald's patty or something, maybe?
No, like half the size of that. You get that little rye bread that they sell, those little loaves. So you get that, and you just like you would making a hamburger, you just take a knife in there and you just spread that hamburger meat or the steak or whatever you want to call it on top of that bread. You put a couple onions on there and some salt and pepper, and you eat it, and you don't cook it.
Raw.
You're raw. 100%.
Well, I mean, now I get the name cannibal sandwich.
It tastes so good. Oh my! They're amazing.
I don't eat red meat cooked. So I'm revolt. My stomach is World War III over here right now.
I love that. And I don't eat much red meat anymore.
Is that exclusive to Wisconsin?
It is. Never heard of it. Yeah, it's weird. You can look it up on Wikipedia, cannibal sandwiches, and it must be something from the, I don't know, German, Polish, whatever. We had a lot of neighborhoods in Milwaukee where I grew up.
Super ethnic.
But very segregated. Mm-hmm. So, there is the Polish neighborhood that you walk through, which you don't hear about much in other places and stuff like that. Although up north, Ohio and stuff like that, Pennsylvania, you have that too. But, I mean, you have every kind of neighborhood, and nobody lives. And this, again, was back when I lived there 30 years ago. But if you lived in the Polish neighborhood, you didn't move in the Italian neighborhood. Exactly. There was no mixing of any of that kind of stuff or whatever.
6 generations in a row were raised in the same
right. But again, then you get a lot of different food that are really exclusive to your little neck of the woods. And I don't know where that came from or why it was or whatever, but they were amazing. And I love eating that.
And wouldn't you have thought at some point somebody would have been like, maybe there's a better name? Maybe.
Right.
Just hear me out. After Jeffrey Dahmer, hear me out on this one.
Isn't the fancy way steak tartare?
Yes. Steak tartare is
so basically what that is, steak tartare on rye bread, I guess. Right? Is that what that is?
I mean, I didn't look up what a cannibal sandwich was because I thought somebody made it up.
And that's what it is. No, that's
when I was doing my research for this, because I did research. That's how professional we are.
Yes.
I thought somebody made it up.
That's 100% real. And I still, now that you're saying it, I crave it.
Now you're hungry for one?
I love it.
Made even worse by the fact that there's no place in Tulsa to get one. You need all the disclaimers. This
right. You gotta sign 14
affidavits. I'm gonna here's an insurance waiver. Okay, well now we know. Man, to dive into the conversation, I was driving on the way over here. Do you remember when we met? I don't normally remember. Like I can't tell you where most are. I remember the first conversation you and I had. Do you remember when that was?
I would guess it would be spine time.
I think so.
Early spine time.
I used to tell people when they'd say, how do you know Chuck from the Edge? I said, man, I've known Chuck before there was an Edge. But I'm not sure that's accurate because our first conversation was, I'm going to say 95-ish or 96-ish at JR's place on 11th.
So there would have been an Edge at that point.
The Edge was there. And the night before, some guy kept hitting on Kelly.
Yes.
And I was like, man, chill out, relax, like be cool. And he was, once I said that, he was cool. And you came in and you said, oh man, thanks so much for being, and I said, hey, of course. And then you and I hit it off. And here we are 30 years later.
Who was only there because she had a fake ID.
Oh yeah, everybody at JR's had that was the whole, I don't think Jimmy Ben did know a real ID if he saw one.
I have a feeling she was wearing her Jinx High School jacket.
Oh man, I saw people come in with national check cashier's ID, like here's an invalid credit card, and
I do remember
get served repeatedly.
Yes. But I feel like we started talking about spine right away.
Within a week or two, Spine was playing another place that doesn't exist. Lee and Chilton Lamho had the Voodoo Room at 41st Memorial.
Remember it? Yep.
Across from Caravan.
Yes.
Our buddy Greg.
Exactly. Which later became a Hispanic club, I think.
It did?
It was a great room, actually.
It was a fantastic room.
Really a good room for live music.
Especially for a hard, high-energy act like Spine.
Yeah.
And now it's Quick Trip.
Right.
For everybody who's trying to put it in their head.
I'll tell you, the first time I saw him was even before that. It was at Garfield's. You remember the Garfield's that was over 58th and Memorial, where it was? And the Dugout was the bar.
That's right.
Now, that place did not look like a place where Caroline Spine could play.
I would not
by
have pegged anybody from Spine to play there.
It's like basically, there was a little lower level in the bar area, which you could only fit one person to walk through at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was 2 pool tables and a few other tables out. And just the floor. There was no stage.
There was no. There was a corner of a room. Is what there was.
That's what it was. And the manager, Mike Whalen of the place, went to school at OSU, so he knew some of the boys, and that's what the deal was. They basically had come to town and go, "Hey man, we're looking for places to play. You got anywhere?" And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead. You'll play Friday night."
It is so.
Which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. What's his name from Great Divide?
Mike McClure?
Yeah, McClure used to do, I think it was Sunday nights there.
I could see that
and
being
just
the case.
a blast. Yeah.
It was, and I think for the young ones who are listening, because I'm sure there are some, Caroline Spine, when they hit, the original lineup was Jim Newquist out of Arizona, Jason Gilardi out of L.A., and then 2 Tulsa kids, Mark Hahn, Scott Jones.
Right.
Who I went to high school with, I went to high school with them, and I'd heard of them, but I hadn't gone and seen them.
Right.
Our mutual friend, God rest his soul, Greg Kozak, I asked Greg, because Greg was my go-to, as you know, before, you became my go-to music store. And I said, what is the deal with Spine? And he said, man, here's the deal. They play their own stuff.
Yep.
And it's good.
Yep. Yeah, right.
Usually you're one of the other.
Which you never got. Yeah,
and they can play 3 hours of that.
Or you'd get some bands that did have good original stuff, but they didn't have 3 hours worth.
They didn't have 3 hours.
They didn't have a set worth.
And if you saw Spine back in because you and I have talked about it was like a religious cult. We were. You couldn't get enough of them.
No.
They may close with an Ozzy medley or a Led Zepp medley, as part of a encore. But other than that, it was all Caroline.
It was
Spine
all
music.
them, right? Or they do the Kiss, the one at the end of the But it was all that encore at the end. One of the medleys that they would do.
And they will tell you they're big. And keep in mind, for those of you who don't know, Caroline Spine opened for Aerosmith, Kiss, Bush, Filter. They were a serious name in the game. And they will tell you that Edge and Tulsa, Chuck and Hondo are the reason that we were able to have the career we had. Those guys themselves have told me that.
I'll tell you, there's a couple thoughts I had with that. And I don't know what their feelings are. So from the outside, I would say one thing, I know they were all jacked to be working for Doc McGee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Motley Crue's manager.
I don't know how much Doc helped them or not.
My guess,
to be honest with you, would he put them on special shows? Sure, every once in a while. But
I don't think,
as far as cultivating that band nationally,
I don't think that was his goal.
But I don't blame him half as much as I blame Hollywood Records.
Oh no,
Hollywood Records and again, the interesting thing about this is it's owned by Disney.
I remember when they got signed to Hollywood and thinking Hollywood was like a movie soundtrack label.
Yes, it was. That's what they did.
Are they going to know how to promote this?
They did not.
And Jimmy Newquist, I remember him telling me, we didn't know video packaging was part of a contract. We didn't know promotions was, this is our first contract we ever signed.
Right.
And the end result, I think, was that they weren't.
Think about this. They come out with their first hit, which is, it didn't chart nationally well. Here's the point. It should have. Called Sullivan. It is about the Sullivan brothers.
Waterloo, Iowa.
Saving Private Ryan is the number one movie for that year. Out in theaters.
At the same time.
Everyone is talking about this particular topic. And you couldn't make a hit out of that?
Hollywood Records couldn't sell clean records with Freddie Mercury.
Well, again,
I've had that conversation.
That's who they are. But there is just no excuse.
There's not.
There is no excuse how you could not make a hit out of that.
Could not turn the biggest. And
it was just that one song.
And Saving Private Ryan was a cultural. It defined that year in that cinema. And it was Spielberg,
everything.
It was everything. And Sullivan, about the Sullivan brothers, who were all killed in World War II.
Right.
And the result of that was the Sullivan Act, so brothers can't serve under the same command, which was the storyline behind Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
So how somebody didn't say this trampoline is here for us. I don't know.
How?
I don't know if it was maybe it was a Doc McGee. Maybe they were like, hey, they're signed, but we're not going to put that much effort or interest. But that was a trajectory that should have been changed.
I mean, don't we all like to make money?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what their thought was. And aside from that conversation I had with Newquist, where he said he didn't realize, when Caroline Spiner released Nothing to Prove, and any Spiners out there, feel free to correct me if you're, they filmed the video on phones in a hotel room, and it went to #1 in MTV Europe. The video was for a little while.
That's incredible.
And they had to do it themselves because they had no video backing. They had no production.
Right.
The label didn't give them anything.
That's crazy. They got some love from alternative radio, but they should have been mainstream rock.
They should.
Are you kidding me?
They if somebody would have said what is fine, I would have said they're the future of classic rock.
Right. And by the way, they were there before all of a sudden Disturbed in 3 Days Grace. Yeah, I mean, there were so many missteps in that.
I won't say every misstep that could have been taken, but like 80%.
I would say.
Yeah, a big chunk.
No, I would say, because they can't even get credit for like it being a top burner for us. Because we had them already before the record deal happened.
Oh, yeah.
We were playing them already.
When they were still doing it self-promoted.
So they don't get any, the record company and management does not get any credit for anything that they did with us. And again, we were like one of their top markets. Yeah, it was music business handled terribly. There's your example.
Yeah. Case study A and B and C. Well, the funny part is because in the early to mid 90s, I wanted to ask you, like I kind of made these bullet point topics. I don't really remember, like I told my daughter the other day, Nirvana wasn't that big of a thing when Nirvana was a thing.
It was not.
I don't remember alternative music being what people seem to remember it as being.
It wasn't. It was a lot. And again, I can take that back a few years. Remember the big punk scene?
Yeah.
But it wasn't that big.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't everywhere. It was in certain parts of London, and then it'd be in certain parts of New York and L.A. and then
cities,
yes. Yeah. And then you would have some bands that were, Bad Brains and stuff like that. So, I mean, this had been seen before. But you're right. The way they talk about grunge, and yes, those records did really well. But, I mean, when they went out live, I saw Nirvana on their last tour, and it was in a theater, I think, that held around 3,500. And so think about that. Did they
sell them all?
It's Brady Theater, and I don't feel like they did. But, so, again, what I'm talking about Tulsa Theater size.
Not BOK.
No.
Not even Maybe Center. They were doing shows.
Couldn't have done that.
Not even
could not have done it because it would have looked like nobody showed up.
Yeah, I mean, it's marbles in a fishbowl.
But it was, it's in movies. It's TV loved it. MTV loved it.
Yeah.
Because it was something different than pop. And they were kind of having an overrun with that. And movies loved
Movies ate it up.
Yes, they did. Soundtracks still to this day are carried by music that came out back then.
Oh, yeah. I think the movie singles, I think the soundtrack came first.
Yes.
He said, let's put a movie together.
I think, well, because he had already had the concept. Obviously, he's written so many great movies through his career. Because again, if you listen to, because again, it's supposed to be a Seattle soundtrack. Actually, the Smashing Pumpkins, a band out of Chicago, have maybe one of their best songs, if not their best song ever, on that album. I mean, it's just so they had a lot of Paul Westerberg's on that album a couple times from Replacements. So that's a Minneapolis band. No, not the same thing as the Seattle Sound and all that. But they did have the Alice in Chains and the Pearl Jams and the Soundgardens and all that, and they were incorporated in the movie, which I thought was really cool. But yes, as much because magazine covers loved it because it was something different and new, and what a great way to sell a magazine. Hey, look at what this crazy thing is that's happening here that nobody knows about, but really everybody knows about because it's on newspaper TV. But yes, as far as people that bought into it completely and all that, no. Top 40 ruled at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Top 40 ruled. What took the hit was heavy metal music.
Big time.
Heavy metal music.
That 80s glam thing that they were trying to turn into a real deal.
And the other thing that took the big hit was alternative had a sound. It was called The Cure and Depeche Mode. New Order, excuse me. And then all of a sudden it was nothing but guitars.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just... Alice in Chains was a band who used to go around opening up for like Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne. And I mean, Alice in Chains was a metal band.
Oh yeah, they were hardcore.
But then it kind of fit.
Hey, wait a second.
Yeah,
we've got a label that has some extra room on it.
We'll work, and all of a sudden it's alternative.
All of a sudden, E becomes air.
Yeah. So I mean, you're right. It is a weird time to explain to people because it's a great culture and it's a great thing to. I love when they if they are making more movies about that time and some of that stuff. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. But you're right. The perception is completely different than the reality at the time, which was these bands were not. I mean, Pearl Jam right now can go out and sell out a lot of arena shows. They could not back then.
No.
They played. Here's a funny story. The first Lollapalooza they were on. I think it was the first one, right? Was it Pearl Jam or the second one? Might have been the second one.
I want to say second one.
Okay. So they played, and they were playing earlier in the day. So they booked gigs like they went and played Trees in Dallas after their gig at Lollapalooza in Dallas that night.
They're like the Travis Kidd or the BC and the Big, like they're booked 3 gigs in the same day.
They double booked it and said, "Fine, that's what we'll do."
Man, they'll take it. They'll take 2 pictures.
And again, if you've ever been to Trees, it's not very big.
Yeah, it is not Wimbledon Arena.
No, it's not. So I mean, again, it's kind of interesting. You think, I mean, because again, when you see an artist now go, I mean, Noah Kahan is, I mean, playing in front of 65,000 people in London, out of all places, or whatever I saw the other day, the guy came out of nowhere. I mean, came out of nowhere, and you can skyrocket like that now. But again, too, we have the internet and we have TikTok, and the landscape is completely changed, and the rules are completely changed.
This is such a good segue. Last night, my girlfriend and I watched the Paul Rubens documentary. He has himself.
Wonderful.
And I was telling her, in entertainment, we love our revisionist history. Pop culture wasn't a thing before the 80s.
No.
It wasn't. No. It wasn't an industry. It wasn't. And Pee Wee happened to late 80s, I think he ran through 91, happened to kind of help define that and blow it up. Yeah. And then the movies and more power to him. But I told her, I said, Pee Wee Herman wasn't the thing.
Nobody thought it would be a thing.
And nobody thought it ever would be anything. Right. He was playing black box rooms in whatever cities he could get in, trying to develop this thing. And I appreciated the doc because he made it very clear up front. It's going to be honest.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but they've included the footage where he's going head to head with the director.
Right.
Going, no, we're going to butt heads because I do want control of this story.
Which, again, most great artists do.
Very much
I mean, you have to understand that. And nobody ever wants to see the guy you think is all happy all the time because there's nobody else going to stick up for you.
Exactly.
That's how that works.
And the funny part is, and this is, I'm just sharing a thought, not trying to dredge anything up. I remembered when Pee Wee Herman got arrested, when Paul Rubens got arrested, I didn't remember there was an obscenity charge years later when they'd raided some art and they wound up.
I remember it too. And then I remember how quietly it got brushed aside. So his PR was, it was ruined.
I told Denise
when they had nothing
after the first time. I said, him coming out at the MTV Video Music Awards.
Yep.
You heard any jokes? It was a PR genius.
Amazing.
Like he was right back in it because we didn't care if he got arrested.
Right.
And then when that came, then he had to go on 60 Minutes, and it was just a whole different thing. And we forgive if you're quiet long enough. And so he didn't. And then, okay, man, we're going to pop this back up. And then Jacob Apatow came calling and said, hey, let's do the movie. And, of course, nobody knew Paul Rubens was sick. I wasn't aware he passed. And all of a sudden, he was just gone.
Handled a lot like Norm Macdonald.
Very much, exactly.
Because if you talk to even his good friends, they did not know.
They were not aware.
No.
And I love the fact, if you're going to take that Steve Ripley approach, you'll know after it happens, but I'm not going to share it with anybody because my performance art, and maybe that's a positive slant to it or whatnot, is as much a defining thing as any illness ever could be.
Right.
And
I agree.
I love the fact that they acknowledge that right up front. But with that said, so alternative music, quote unquote, came on this. Now everything's neo, post, pre, con. It's hard to define anything. In fact, I had this conversation. You can appreciate this. Isaac Hansen and I were talking. I told him, I said, hey, when I'm booking the shows, I book the regional and local touring acts. I tell all the artists, I said, you need to describe your sound for me in 4 words or less because I got to fit it on a billboard or put it on a hat, whatever it's going to be. And I asked him, I said, could you, because Hanson came out, you know, right at the time.
Right.
And I said, could you define that in 4 words or less? He said, I wouldn't even try. Like, no, I would, after 30 years, I wouldn't even try to. His Mother Road Sons, his new project, which is fantastic. He goes, yeah, this one I could, but that one, no, I couldn't. And he was the one who told me, we were talking about what was pop, what was rock, and he said, you know, man, Third Eye Blind, Somebody Trying to Kind of Life.
Right. Right. Come on.
That's just mbop. That's all that is. And I was like, man, I'd never looked at it through that lens
100%. It's how you market it.
That's exactly, and that's what it comes down to.
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Let me ask you this. When was the last artist you heard that you felt, okay, this wasn't dreamed up in an agent's office. There weren't lawyers and PR folks talking to try to get this thing. This is somebody whose music speaks for itself. Or can you even recall? Because it's been a long time.
No, but you got to find artists that are willing to do whatever. Again, as much as people talk about Radiohead, I don't know how much people listen to, especially the later Radiohead, which I love, which I think is brilliant.
They're like Jason Isbell. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows who they are.
You're right.
I bet if I were to say name 5 songs,
right, and then they go, no. I think they were, because I look for something that you haven't heard before. And a lot of what they were doing and doing it, and that was the other thing too. You can do a lot of different things with, production.
Mm-hmm.
But I've watched them perform. BBC has a lot of great videos of them performing in studio where they are doing their looping and all that different stuff live. And you're watching them get it, and they got to get it right. You get one take. This isn't, no big deal, start over and go again. No. And some of the stuff that they could do was pretty incredible. I would say, because you're right, it is hard to. How many times have you heard this? All the chords have been played, and all the chords have been played. Right, exactly. And so you're right. It is hard to find things like that. But even way back in the day, guys like Jeff Beck.
Mm-hmm.
Would find a different way to play the guitar. Oh, I'm going to make it sound like it's from the Middle East. And a singer, I'm going to make this guitar sound like a singer from the Middle East.
The same guitar that everybody else plays.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it differently. And nobody's ever heard this before. And it's guys who kind of think like that too, that just are fine. And again, a lot of it is, you get to be that when you've already been successful and you've already made your money and you don't have to worry about, the house going to be paid for later on. Yes, right. So it's easier said than done, especially now where we don't sell music anymore. So, for an artist, no, you still kind of got to go out there and beat the path and bigger crowds will come when more people know your stuff and all agree with, and that's the sound I like and blah, 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 blah. That is hard to do if you're a very experimental artist. You are not going to have a lot of people show up.
I will tell you the true experimental artist I know, nobody's ever heard of and never will.
Right. But there it is.
Because there
it is.
They're more committed to this than they are. And I get you need cha-ching, you need some money, you need to pay your bills, and you want to do the rock star lifestyle. But I
don't even think you get that anymore. Here's the cool thing about living in Tulsa right now is the guys from El Dorado taught me this. They're like, why would we have a house in L.A.? You know how much further our money stretches here in Tulsa?
Exponentially.
And we all don't have to sound like we're living the same life in L.A. when we're writing and we're doing other things. And that's kind of the real big hope for places like Tulsa who do embrace live music and do embrace original music is that, because just monetarily, it is not worth it. Even in Nashville.
Oh, Nashville.
Look how expensive Nashville is. You want to live in East Nashville? You will have a tiny house and it will be $1.5 million.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Your smallest apartment.
And a tiny house.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, these are all great places and they're all incredible. But in the end, musicians who are not making the money they used to make are not going to be able to live there anymore. And so the future is cities like Tulsa.
That's exactly it.
Yep.
I will tell you that because I'm looking for a segue where you and I could talk about our road trip to Lubbock. The last new artist. So Chuck and I, and if you've been around Tulsa for more than 20 minutes, you know who Kurt Hill is.
Yes.
And the three of us, man, we have some fun hangs and some fun shenanigans. And several years ago, I woke up one day and said, man, it can't be that hard to make a documentary.
Right.
Spoiler alert, it's damn hard.
It's really hard.
Even if you have all the money.
And remember, we should also include Mark Hall was one of the guys we were consulting on this from Caroline Spine. Was consulting about.
Who do we know that's ever done anything like this?
Kind of production as far as that goes. And okay. Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
So we're heading down to Lubbock, and on the way down, and Kurt's driving. Sometimes we'll do like an iPod poll where we're introduced. And you said, man, this group is going to be huge. And you played the song, and I said, man, I don't know if they're going to be that big. And you said, they will be. And I said, what's their name again? And you said, Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. And then, like a month later, they broke all over the planet. They were just selling, and they still are.
Yeah, they
doing
are. And they're so good live.
That's what it is their live show is, I tell people, the album is the appetizer.
That's
the
correct.
Live show
that
is the entree.
100% correct.
And it was one of those situations where, and I remember, man, Kurt was Todd Snyder in the Devil's Backbone Tavern Stories. But we go down to Lubbock because I'm convinced, and Buddy Holly, I was always a Buddy Holly fan.
Yes.
And I made a couple phone calls and gotten in touch with Peggy Sue Guerin.
Yes.
Who was Peggy Sue, the song was written about, and Peggy Sue got married, the song was written about. And I said, hey, can we come down and we're going to make a documentary and sit down with you? And she said, yeah, come on down. And then Peggy Sue, God rest her soul, she passed away a few years ago. She had an assistant, a handler, a buddy.
All of that.
Whose name was Randy. And Randy is a character, man, like no other character. We couldn't make anything up.
No.
If we wanted to. Randy had been, at various points in his life, a mule breeder, a ranch hand, a concert promoter.
Right.
And somehow he and Peggy Sue got in touch, so he was her handler. And one day I said, man, hey, Randy, man, we're just going to drive around town, and you want to hang out with us? And he's, oh, boy, man, he's excited.
Right, he's invited. And this is and he has no idea really who we are, other than that we're filming a movie.
First time we met. Right. And we've had a couple phone conversations. And we're driving by this statue that's like an 800-ton steer that's bolted to, like it's Lubbock's livestock history. And we're driving, it stops, and Randy goes, hey, man, guys, we ought to come back tonight and steal this thing. and we're like, man, we don't have it's 400 tons, and it's bolted down. You're right, man, we should turn it around. I just lifted it up and turned it around. And I said, what the hell are you talking? Randy's stories were so outlandish. Oh. Before he would start talking, Kurt, he would say, hold on, Randy, he'll break his phone out.
We need to record this. Yes.
Because his stories, later that afternoon, we said, man, Randy, we're looking for somewhere we can eat in Lubbock, because everything closes at 9 o'clock in Lubbock.
And we're like, we want to, something that's unique to Lubbock that we can have.
Get it anywhere else.
Although, yes, you always, when you go to Lubbock, where do you eat?
Where do we have to go?
And he's been there forever, so he should know this. Yeah.
And he says, man, I got a place for you. As we're driving to his place, we're passing by like Debbie Sue's Barbecue since 1951.
That looks good. Nope, we go right by.
Mark's Sandwich Shop, been in business since the Alamo.
Yep.
Like it's no. He goes, I got this place. It's called McAllister's. and I think I said the sandwich shop. He goes, oh yeah, man, they got the best sandwiches. And we walk in, and the second we walk in, we realize Randy knows one or two of the people behind the counter. And he's the big dog. And we sat there across the street from the oldest barbecue store in Lubbock, Texas.
We're just salivating to get into it. And then this is nothing against McAllister's, but understand something. This barbecue joint looked really good.
I mean, and we're smelling it. And we're like, man, the sandwich is good, but our taste buds are across the street.
If you've ever been to Lubbock, it's really hard to get something to smell good. It was kind of like, what?
It is. That first night we got in town, we get there at like 8:30. We try to order a pizza. Everything is closed at 9 o'clock. Nothing is open. I went down to the front desk. She's like, "No, why would anything be open?" And Texas Tech is there. Like, why would you not be? Everything's
huge university. No, nothing.
We should move it. We should steal it. Randy was telling a story when he was still doing concerts. He decided he was going to be the one to pick up Carl Perkins and his family. Because Lubbock has a music scene that Buddy Holly helped establish, and they try to carry on that tradition, right? And he goes to pick up Carl Perkins, and Carl's like middle school age kids with sawed off shotguns and pistols in the back, like an armory in the back seat. And he was flabbergasted that Carl Perkins freaked out. Like, all these guns, and he's just waiting. And I said, what did you think he was going to see? You got a man loaded, too, in the back seat. He freaked out on me.
Carl Perkins freaked out.
And Kurt was like, were you expecting he wouldn't? Do you think he's going to be understanding about it? But we got to meet with Peggy Sue.
The history there was so cool. We also went off to where a lot of the recordings were done.
Clovis, New Mexico, and Richard Petty Studios.
And that was kind of amazing too. And just, I mean, there's a lot. I think we all were kind of surprised that they don't own Buddy Holly as much as they should.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like Hibbing, Minnesota. They're just now catching on to the fact, that this place was a destination area for a lot of fans. Influenced a lot of artists.
The favorite piece of memorabilia I bought from there was the Holly Tiling Company.
Oh yeah,
because his brother just had a tiling company. That's what he did. That's what he did.
HOLLEY.
Yes, that's correct. And I thought that was just the coolest thing in the world. That but you can get a trucker hat from his brother there. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, of course.
It was amazing. But remember eating pancakes.
The whole concept of this documentary, which has been done a million times, I look back now, was I called it Footsteps because we went to the places that helped form who Buddy Holly was.
Right.
And the Pancake House there had the original counter where Buddy and Waylon Jennings and Elvis would get together and eat pancakes.
Yeah.
All the other, Buddy's house was still standing and his school was, but a lot of the rest of it had kind of been torn down and, kind of progress moves on. But we sat there and just had like a moment of silence.
Right, going.
For three of the biggest influential names you can come up with on any genre.
Right.
Literally sat here and poured syrup over their pancakes and talked about their music.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Take that, McAllister's.
Yeah, McAllister's in Lubbock, Texas. And again, the sandwich was good, but we were smelling tangy barbecue and like salty porks in the air. But the funny part is we had the conversation. I remember, again, driving back, how music used to be, man, it was hillbilly or it was rock or it was gospel. It was 3 or 4 kind of genres they fell into. And now, kind of to shift forward a bit, if it's cool, man, I want to talk about alternative radio.
Yeah.
And man, life in radio, because I got to tell you, I don't think a lot of people understand. And that is all we have time for this week, folks. But I promise you, this conversation is not over. Stay tuned to next week. We'll be back with the second half of our conversation with the one and only Chuck Stikl.